Welcome to Veteran Resource Podcast, where you will meet nonprofit organizations focused on improving the lives of veterans and their family members. Here is your host, Jeremy Paris.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 10 of the Veteran Resource Podcast. Today's guest is Blayne Smith from Team Red, White, and Blue, also known as Team RWB. But before we get into that, as usual, wanted to go over a few of the reviews. We're up to 61 5-star reviews now, which is outstanding. And the first one is the Entrepreneur's Library, who says, "Great show. Very encouraging podcast that I know is going to help so many veterans." And Thomas O'Grady, PhD, says, "Great service and great podcast. Being a veteran, I am glad to see such a great service. Great job and keep it up, Jeremy." And the Big Easy says, "Jeremy is great. What an awesome public service and a great listen for transitioners." Well, thank you so much, guys. I love seeing these reviews. And if you have not given a review yet, I invite you to go over to veteranpodcast.com/iTunes, which will bring you into iTunes and allow you to go in and leave a review of your own. And you'll hear it on a future episode. I also would like to point out that we do have a Facebook page. It is at facebook.com/Veteran Resource Podcast. Pretty easy to find. And if you have not done so yet, please go there and like the page. And these episodes only come out once per week, but you'll see more content flowing in there every week. So be sure to go there and like that, and you'll find out more about the organizations that we're talking to. All right, now let's get back to the interview. Blayne works closely with Team RWB's board members, staff, and volunteer leaders to develop and implement programs that serve veterans across the country. He provides strategic and operational guidance to the organization while building and managing key partnerships. Blayne is a West Point graduate and former Special Forces officer with combat tours in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Upon leaving the military, he worked at Quest Diagnostics while earning his MBA at the University of Florida. Blayne currently resides in Tampa with his two boys and leads the Team RWB Tampa chapter. And let's go ahead and jump right into the interview. Blayne, welcome to the Veteran Resource Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Yeah, this is actually a first for the Veteran Resource Podcast because this is the first interview I'm doing where I didn't reach out to you guys. You guys actually hit the website and requested that I contact you about being on a future episode, and that's pretty exciting, pretty cool.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised. We're kind of a grassroots organization and have spread largely by word of mouth, so it's not surprising that somebody would have reached out to you and attempted to spread the word a little bit.
That's great. Okay, I wanted to find out more about you, Blayne, but before I do, can you please give a brief description of what Team Red, White, and Blue is?
Sure. Team Red, White, and Blue is a national nonprofit organization, and our mission is to enrich the lives of veterans by connecting them to their community through physical and social activity. Essentially, we have a chapter model. We're in almost 150 cities now across the country, and what we're trying to do is connect veterans not just with other veterans, but with members of their community through positive activities like sports, physical fitness, volunteering, community service, and even just social activities so that we can really bridge the civil-military divide, keep veterans focused, give them the sense of camaraderie and identity that maybe they missed when they left the military, and give them a positive outlet to be leaders in their community moving forward.
That's great. There's a lot there that I want to touch on. But before we do, I wanted to find out more about your background. I'm going to be talking about your time in the military. I'm going to be talking about Team Red, White, and Blue. But aside from those, can you give me a little bit more about who you are? Did you have any military connections growing up or anything like that?
Yeah, so I grew up down in Southwest Florida in a place called Cape Coral, which most people don't know about. They either think it's Coral Springs or Cape Canaveral, but it was kind of a quiet place to grow up down on the west coast of Florida, and pretty basic kind of Midwestern family. We moved down there from Missouri when I was a kid. Did most of our time outdoors. We did a lot of fishing and sports and stuff. My dad had served in the Army for a few years, kind of during the Vietnam era from 69 to 71. And I never really had any plans to join the military. I played sports in high school and was a decent student. And I had a teacher that really encouraged me to apply to the military academies and see if that might be a good way for me to go to college. And I was a little reluctant at first, but that was sort of the first step toward considering a military career.
And you went to West Point, is that correct?
That's right.
How was that experience for you?
I think like most people, it's a great place to be from. I'm very proud of my time there, and I learned a ton. Made most of the really good friends that I still have in my life today are people that I met during my time at West Point. So it was a tremendous growth experience for an 18-year-old kid. I can't say that the first couple of years were a lot of fun, but I think honestly I probably needed them to challenge me a little bit, to get me focused, to introduce me to struggling and not having success at everything I did. It was a very humbling and very enriching experience for a young man. I'm really, really glad to have had the opportunity.
And at that point, when you were going through West Point, did you already know what you wanted to do in the military?
No, not at all. I went into it not knowing a whole lot about the military, to be honest, and I kind of learned as I went. My aspirations evolved a little bit during my 4 years there, and even what I started off doing when I left West Point wasn't really what I ended up doing by the end of my time in the Army. So it was one of those things where I just sort of adapted my expectations and my plans sort of as I went.
And I saw also in your bio that you're currently living in Tampa. That's a great place. I was down there earlier this year. I went to Miami for the boat show, and then after a day there, I decided I don't want to be here in Miami. I want to go and check out the West Coast, and I went over to Tampa and Clearwater. I checked out Pier 60, and that is just an absolutely amazing place.
Yeah, I'm a little biased because I live here, but I'm a huge fan of Tampa. My family loves it here. It's kind of the right size city for me. It's got kind of everything you would ever want, tons of great outdoor stuff, good weather, but it's not a huge city, so traffic isn't terrible. The cost of living is pretty moderate. And so we really like it here. It just sort of fits our lifestyle very well.
Yeah, it's really cool. Going back to your military career, so you get out of West Point. Where did you go from there?
So I graduated from West Point and I was commissioned an armor officer. So I spent a little time at Fort Knox in school. I actually was commissioned on June 2nd, 2001. And so what I thought my Army career was going to look like, ended up being quite different from what it ended up being like. So I went to the Armor Basic course at Fort Knox for about 6 months. And then I went to Fort Hood, Texas. And I was with the 1st Cavalry Division there. I was a platoon leader, then I was a scout platoon leader in a couple different units at the 1st Cav Division. I did a year in Iraq. Most of '04 I was over in Iraq. And that was really, the start of my Army life.
And then you said earlier that you switched jobs when you were in the military.
Yeah, so when I was over in Iraq in '04, I had a really cool job. I was a scout platoon leader for the Brigade Recon team, and I had a really great boss, and we had a really exciting mission. I had great men, and I really was enjoying my time in the Army as much as you can enjoy being in Iraq, I suppose. But I really felt a great sense of purpose in my job. And I had the chance when I was there to work with some guys from the 5th Special Forces Group, and I was just really impressed with the maturity, their mission, their resources, their results. And I really felt like if I was going to go back to Iraq or Afghanistan, I really felt like I should go back in that capacity if I could, because I really felt like those guys had the opportunity to really make a difference and move the needle, in terms of the conflict. And so the month I got home from Iraq, I went to Special Forces selection and then spent the next couple of years kind of going through all the courses in school that you have to. And then I spent my last, 3 or 4 years on active duty at 3rd Special Forces Group.
And you were 18?
Alpha.
18 Alpha, okay. Outstanding. What made you decide to get out of the military?
I think there were a number of factors. For one, I never really had planned to stay much beyond my 5-year commitment from West Point. I just thought I would do my 5 years and move on. But the nature of the world while I was in the military and all of that, I think, persuaded me to stay a little longer. But I'd kind of done everything that I really wanted to do in the Army. I'd had a chance to have all really great jobs. I'd never had a job I didn't like. But I could tell that those days, as an officer, your days are kind of numbered. You're eventually going to go to the staff and get, somewhat put out to pasture, I suppose. And none of those jobs really interested me a whole lot. Plus, I had a young family. I had a newborn baby and a 3-year-old at home, and I'd missed, most of their lives up to that point. So just sort of, I had an itch to just sort of try something new. I was about 30 years old, I guess, and I just kind of felt like it was time to either stay or go. And I felt like I wanted to turn the page and maybe start a new chapter.
And at that point, did you already have any idea that you were going to be doing something like Team Red, White, and Blue?
No, not at all. In fact, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I didn't know what life would be like outside the military, and I almost went into kind of federal law enforcement or the intelligence community. But I felt like I needed to take a break and work maybe in corporate America or the private sector just to know what it was like. And I felt like if I wanted to go back to defense or intel, I would have that opportunity. But I really wanted to try something different. And so I just sort of went into corporate America. I went through some recruiting firms, and they found me a cool job down in Tampa. And I thought, why not? And I got a job in corporate America, and I started doing that. And that was really my transition out of the Army.
Not bad.
No, I was fortunate to find a good gig and be able to start work right away.
Yes, that doesn't really happen for everybody. So
sure,
it's really great that you were able to jump right into it. So where did the idea for Team Red, White, and Blue come from?
So a good friend of mine that I'd served with at Fort Bragg named Mike Irwin, we left third group around the same time, and I went into the private sector, and he left, and he was at grad school at the University of Michigan. He was actually still in the Army, but he was on assignment to go to grad school there en route to another assignment. And so that first summer that we were both kind of out of the Army life, he came down to Tampa where I was living and spent, it was a month or 6 weeks or something. And we both sort of were chatting about how, man, life was really different outside the military, and the people around us, it wasn't the same as living at Fort Bragg anymore, living in Tampa or Ann Arbor, Michigan. And he had asked me if I would run a marathon that fall with a bunch of our friends in order to raise money for a veterans nonprofit. And I thought, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I don't really have anything I'm doing right now that I'm passionate about. I'll train for a marathon. I'll do this with you. Yeah, sounds cool. And over time, I think Mike really wanted to get that nonprofit. He wanted them to get some of their beneficiaries and the families and stuff involved, and he wanted for us runners to kind of meet them and spend time together. And they kind of said, well, we don't really do that. And Mike, being the kind of guy that he is, said, well, that doesn't make any sense. We got to get people connected here. So he just started his own nonprofit, and he felt like there should be a veteran support organization that connects veterans with members of their community on a consistent basis. Because, whether you've got a cool ski trip or a new prosthetic leg or, a mortgage-free home, it doesn't really matter what kind of tremendous benefits we can give our veterans, as great as they are. At some point, you're still home, and you're maybe 28 or 30 years old, and you've got to live the rest of your life. And so we had a hard time figuring out what was really there for veterans in their communities to keep them engaged and keep them active and focused. And we didn't see anything out there. And so Mike took a big leap of faith and founded a nonprofit. And, a few of us were kind of on board from the beginning to help out. And then it really just kind of got traction and went from there.
This organization is based on physical and social activities completely. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that spans a pretty broad range of potential activities, but we really started off, and our bread and butter is still really around the physical activity. And we love physical activity for a few reasons. I think obviously it's good for your physical health, which is a great place to start. But we know it's also good for your mental and emotional health. We know that staying physically active reduces stress and anxiety and even depression. But I think maybe most importantly, physical activity is an excellent way to bond people together. If you and I were to have just a conversation over the phone or maybe over a cup of coffee, we might connect on some level. We might get to know each other a little bit. But if we sweat it out together in a workout or go for a 3-mile run together, chances are we're going to make a little bit of a stronger connection. And so we love physical fitness as kind of the primary driver of these social relationships that we're trying to create. It's not all we do, but it's probably always going to remain pretty core to what we do.
That's really cool. I'm a big fan of physical activity, whether it be rock climbing or kayaking or running or biking, just doing something that involves sweating. I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we try to remind people, too, that it's fun. So it doesn't all have to be like torturous, drudgery, running miles out in the heat. Like you said, it could be rock climbing or kayaking. The idea is for it to be fun. So it gets people off the couch and connected to one another and, give them a chance to go out and play a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that.
Playing is very important. So tell me about what programs Team Red, White, and Blue has.
Sure. So we have some pretty basic programs. Our kind of most general and most inclusive program is what we call the Veteran Ambassador Program. And really all that means is that any person, any veteran, anywhere in the world can sign up to be a member of Team Red, White, and Blue. They can join the organization, kind of join the movement, if you will. And we'll send them a Team Red, White, and Blue athletic t-shirt free of charge. They can be part of the team. They can connect with us digitally, virtually, and they can join up at any event, thousands of events across the country with their fellow team members. That's kind of what we would refer to as kind of the wide end of the funnel. That's our chance to get our arms around folks and just get them involved and make them part of the team. And then really the core of what we do, our main program is what we call the Chapter and Community Program. And this is our chapter-based local program where we're in almost 150 cities now across the country. And our local chapters and communities facilitate very consistent, very inclusive, regular opportunities for veterans to connect with veterans in their community and other supportive members of their community through, maybe a weekly running group or a free yoga class or a CrossFit class or a volunteer opportunity. But our chapters are working hard to make sure that the community has many opportunities to come together in very easy, kind of inclusive ways to get to know each other and do positive stuff. And then our last couple of programs are a little smaller but growing. One is our veteran athletic camps, or athletic and leadership camps, we call them, where veterans are kind of nominated or apply from their chapters to go to these 3 and 4 day camps around a number of different sports. It could be rock climbing or triathlon or trail running. And they get world-class coaching and education on one of these sports or activities, but we really think it's an investment in them, and we let them know this from the beginning. So they go there and they also get 4 hours of leadership development training, and then we ask them to just really sort of pay that investment forward when they go back home to their community and be a leader, whether it's around that sport or just in general. But we found that to really be like kind of a big force multiplier for us. And then kind of a spin-off of this, or maybe an umbrella that encompasses this, that we're really launching recently, is our leader development program. So our local programs don't happen unless we have literally hundreds of volunteer leaders giving of themselves. And we know that we can't sustain it and grow it unless we invest back in our volunteer leaders. And so we've launched a leader development program where any member of the organization can gain access to our kind of homegrown curriculum. We have some educational partners that are supplying some curriculum. They can go to the camps, obviously. We do seminars and leadership summits. And we are really growing leaders within Team Red, White, and Blue for our organization, but also for the communities where these folks live.
That's great. I also saw on the website that you have something called the Eagle Research Center. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, certainly. So one of the things that we find to be very important is measurement. We're big on accountability, we're big on metrics, and we're big on research. So while we're not necessarily like an academic or research institution, we keep a very close measurement of our outputs and of our outcomes, be it through measurement or surveys, to make sure that our programs are achieving the goals that we set out to achieve. So we want to know, how many activities are we hosting? How many interactions is that facilitating? How much sort of fitness is going on? And then we measure the outcomes. How connected do our members feel? Do they feel a greater sense of purpose? All of these things. So we're constantly measuring our outputs and our outcomes to make sure that our programs are achieving the desired end state. And so in the course of doing that, we've uncovered some stuff, frankly. And so we've got a number of PhDs who are volunteering their time. It's kind of headed up by a PhD at UPenn named Caroline Angel. And we're constantly looking at our numbers, constantly looking at our metrics, refining our surveys, and we're trying to, obviously make sure that our programs are working and refine them accordingly. But we also think that we have something to contribute to the space in general. And so we're working on, creating some knowledge, some white papers, some information that we can share with the space at large to, maybe better educate Americans about veterans, maybe better educate veterans about themselves, better educate veteran-serving nonprofits about what works and what maybe doesn't work as well. So it's not really, like I said, we're not really an academic research institute or anything like that, but we're really committed to understanding what's going on. And if we find something that we think is really valuable, we want to make sure that we share that.
That's outstanding. Blayne, imagine that there's somebody out there, a veteran who's listening to this podcast right now, and they're thinking, everything you're saying sounds great. What would you say for that person? What should they do to get involved right away? And kind of walk me through, like, what would that onboarding process be like for that person?
Yeah, great question. So that's really what we're looking for here is we want involvement. We want engagement. And so anybody can go to teamrwb.org, and there's a button at the top that says join the team. If you click on that, it'll show you a map of the country with kind of little pins and flags on it that show where our chapters are. Anybody can join the team. It's free. It takes about 30 seconds. You just input your name and email address and zip code, and there's a drop-down menu of the chapter nearest you. You just pick that chapter, and within 24 hours, you'll get an email from our national headquarters welcoming you to the team, giving you some additional information about how you can get involved. And then within 48 hours, your local chapter will also send you a welcome email with the local calendar of events and schedule, and again, all the resources you need to get involved locally. And from there, you can just sort of pick and choose what's interesting to you and how you'd like to get most involved. It's really pretty simple. We try to make it as easy as we can.
So for somebody who's super busy, they could still join up, and they don't need to be there for every activity. They don't need a huge commitment to be involved. They can jump in wherever they choose. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we think that's kind of one of the strengths of the program. We try to pride ourselves on our activities being, fun and valuable. So we're never going to guilt anyone into coming out or just expect people to come out because it's a good cause. We try to put some fun and interesting stuff on the calendar. And if you're really super busy, you can come out once a month or whatever fits. I would just stress that I think you'd be surprised at how much that means to people. So even if you can only come once a month, or if you can only go to an event a few times a year, the power of being part of a team, and maybe if you run 4 or 5Ks a year, if you throw on your shirt and you join up with the local team and you run it with your team, it's really a pretty special feeling, and the sense of camaraderie that you get from that is important, and we shouldn't shortchange that. So, whether you can come out to the workout every day of the week or a few times a year, it's really important to be involved. And I tell you, our members and our veterans value your involvement. That means a lot to them too.
And what types of activities? You mentioned the events. Is it mostly just running, or do you have other things going on too?
No, it's quite a bit more than running. So I think most chapters have probably like a weekly running group just because it's kind of easy to get started. But almost every chapter now probably has a very regular opportunity for yoga, for CrossFit or functional fitness. A lot of the chapters are doing things like indoor rock climbing or playing in recreational sports leagues like soccer or softball. Down in Tampa, we do a lot of stand-up paddleboarding and kayaking. And like I said, there's also some purely social opportunities. We'll do a Memorial Day barbecue. And we did an Earth Day cleanup. This weekend we're volunteering with Special Olympics Florida. And so we hope that there's a little bit of something for everybody. And if you're out of shape, or you've got an injury, or maybe physical fitness just isn't your thing right now, I don't want that to dissuade you from coming out. You can come out and walk or volunteer or man the water station. The chapter will find a way to get you involved, believe me.
That's great. Now, you mentioned earlier the map that's on the website. I did have a chance to go through and take a look at that. And there's little eagle pins all over the map. Just how big are you guys right now?
Yeah, so we've grown, like I said, we're in almost 150 cities total. We have a process, about a 90 or 120-day process, where a chapter it goes through an onboarding. And so not all of those are reflected on the map, but there's probably about 117 or 18 on the map, and then there are some others that are kind of in development still. In terms of total members, we're over 70,000 members now. And just to give you some perspective, that's up from about 3,500 at the beginning of 2012.
Wow. Or
13 rather. And so we're growing at between 75 and 100 new members every single day.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so it's really been pretty exciting to see the growth. It's been awesome. You give people an opportunity to be a part of the team and to come in and contribute, and they're up for that. I think that's really cool to see.
Is there a cost to this for the veteran?
No, there's not at all. Membership is completely free. All of the programs, the chapter level, the camps, all of it is completely free to our members. Within the chapters, there might be events that if there's, food involved or something like that, there may be some nominal fee at a restaurant or maybe at a yoga studio. But for the most part, everything is pretty much completely free.
That's great. And I keep mentioning for the veteran, but this is for family members and for civilians as well, correct?
Yeah, and I think that's really important to point out because our goal is to connect veterans to their community. And, that's very hard to do if you don't involve the community in what you're doing. So about 30% of our members are non-veterans, so that they may be family members or just supportive members of the community. And we find that 30% to be really valuable because they bring a great perspective and they give our veterans the opportunity to meet the people in their community who they find pretty quickly are much more like them than they are different from them. You know, people go through pretty common stuff, and I think once we get a chance to authentically know each other, that becomes pretty obvious. So we're really proud of the veteran and the civilian mix of our organization, and we hope to maintain that.
That's great. I would love to hear some of your success stories from Team Red, White, and Blue. Can you share some with us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I mean, this is something where we don't have to work too hard to dig these up because people are constantly, hitting us on the Facebook page or sending us emails talking about how much being involved in the team has meant to them. But just to give you a couple of specific examples, there's a guy up in central Pennsylvania named Sean, and he was someone that we found kind of in the middle of a tough spell for him. He was an Army NCO and a good one, but since leaving the military, he had been depressed and had struggled with alcohol addiction and a number of other things, and he just kind of started running, and the running gave him a sense of purpose, but it also gave him a kind of a family of people to do it with. And he started losing weight. He started feeling happier. And then it wasn't too long until he kind of started up his own chapter in central Pennsylvania and became a leader. And then he became someone that people really looked up to. He's recently, just this past weekend, graduated from college and is going to be a social worker and a family counselor. I mean, It's just amazing to see a guy in a year and a half or 2 years go from being really on the brink to not only just a model citizen, but a leader and someone that people aspire to be like in their community. Really, really proud of Sean. And there's so many that are just like him. Just here in Tampa, I know Mike and Nick and Eric are three guys that work with me here at our office in Tampa. All three wounded in combat. All three, pretty bitter and depressed. A couple of years removed from the military. And now all three leading here at the local level, out there doing outreach, connecting with veterans. Eric is actually next door right now over in our gym, coaching a functional fitness class for veterans from here in Tampa. So it's just, I could go on, and I'll try to stay concise. But I'm always so proud when I see veterans not just sort of take ownership of their own well-being and recovery at times, but then to spin that forward and start extending the hand to their fellow veterans and members of their community. And being a leader, I mean, it's incredible. And I tell you that opportunity to continue leading is really special because I think there's a difference between community service and leadership. And both are very obviously important and both are good. But, you can go out and serve in your community for an hour at a time, on a project or something, and that's great. But the opportunity to be a leader in your community and inspire others to serve and inspire others to improve is something different entirely, and that's it's really awesome to see.
I love hearing success stories like that. That's great. So, Blayne, what upcoming events or projects does Team Red, White, and Blue have?
So if you think locally, there's literally thousands of things going on over the next couple of months. I mean, there's hundreds of stuff going, hundreds of activities any given week. We've got a couple of more national events coming up that are pretty cool that almost anyone can get involved in. So the first one coming up over Memorial Day is an event we call WOD with Warriors, which is where a local gym or CrossFit box can sign up to host a special tribute functional fitness workout, and we get members of the community together with our local chapters, and they do the workout. It's pretty challenging, but it's inclusive and it's fun. And then have some barbecue or a picnic afterwards, and really just kind of build some community around this tribute workout. That's going on over Memorial Day weekend. You can go to wodwithwarriors.org and sign up to host an event, if you're a gym owner or a club owner in your town. Coming up this fall, we've got an event that we call the Old Glory Relay, where we will physically run a single American flag from San Francisco to Bethesda, Maryland, across the country. And you can sign up at oldgloryrelay.org, and you and your friends can have a team where you pick a day and you run the flag as a relay at various stages across the country. Or we're also going to have some really cool kind of virtual opportunities where even if you can't make it out to the course and run a leg, you can do some things sort of virtually to kind of be involved, log some miles, support the organization, and kind of be a member of the team in that process. So look for those two things. But if you go to teamrwb.org, There's a tab that's marked events. You can check that out. There's stuff going on all over the country all the time.
Very cool. One last question before we get into the final three. What do you expect for the future of Team Red, White, and Blue?
I think we have a pretty bold vision. We're very proud of the work we've done to this point to kind of lay the infrastructure, and we've become pretty good at engagement and connection at the local level. And we wanted to keep doing more of the same, but I think if we look into the future, our ambitious goal is to really be a hub or a base and a place where veterans and their families go when they exit the military and they move to their new community. We want them to look for Team Red, White, and Blue and to get connected with us, to stay involved in a positive way. And if there are other resources they need along the way, we can connect them to those resources as well. But that's really our vision, is to be a new team for veterans to join when they leave the military, stay engaged, stay involved, continue leading, and then also provide, whether it's referrals or access to other resources that they may need. That's our goal.
Awesome. Okay, Blayne, are you ready for the final three?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Who would you like to hear on a future episode of Veteran Resource Podcast?
If you haven't talked to him already, I think you should call Jake Wood, the CEO at Team Rubicon. He's a friend of mine, a tremendous and inspiring guy. So I think he would be great to have on the show.
Very cool. Okay. What upcoming project has you fired up right now?
So I am most engaged in and excited about our leader development program. So we've just kind of launched it. It's kind of in the pilot stages. And I think it has the opportunity to be completely transformational for our organization as we continue to invest more in our members and our leaders and inspire and empower them to be leaders in their community. I think we can see sort of exponential return on that investment. People are really responding to it already. It's kind of what I'm passionate about. So I am super fired up about the leader development program and can't wait to see where it goes.
Awesome. Final question. If you woke up tomorrow and you found out that somebody had made an anonymous donation of $10 million to your organization, what would you do with it?
Well, the first thing I would do is try to find someone to send a thank you note to, because that's a huge donation. We have a director of gratitude at Team Red, White, and Blue, and we're trying to be really big on thank you notes. So I would do that first. But if I couldn't, what we would do is we would continue to scale our programs. I mean, I think that we're in a position where with that kind of financial investment, we could actually turn it pretty quickly and scale our programs. We have, just to give you some reference, we only have 12 employees right now for the whole organization,
wow,
serving over 70,000 members. Every region of the country has one employee assigned against it. We have one regional director assigned to each region of the country. We have one person assigned against our camps program, one person against development, one person against finance. I mean, we are a really super lean organization. So I would probably give those folks some help so that we could better conduct outreach in the communities, better work with partners across the space so that we could access and refer into better resources. We'd bolster the leader development program, we'd bolster the camps. And it may sound like kind of a boring example, but we would just sort of do more of what we do and scale up quickly and try to get more veterans involved in more communities more often. I think it would be awesome.
Great answer. And I can't believe that you're doing everything that you're doing with that few number of employees. Outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, it's a testament. We have a great team, and I'm super proud of our employees, but it's really a testament to the tremendous volunteer leaders that we have, everyone from our board of directors down to our local chapter captains and staff. I mean, people are putting in tremendous hours, working very, very hard, giving of themselves, and it's humbling for me just to be a part of it. So it's amazing.
Well, if you're out there listening to this podcast and you happen to have an extra $10 million laying around and you're looking for a great place to put it, you just heard Blayne tell you what Team Red, White, and Blue can do with the money. And so for that individual or for anybody else that wants to find out more about your organization, where should they go?
Just go to www.teamrwb.org. Almost everything you would need to know about the organization is there. You can join the organization, find a chapter, become a fundraiser. Anything that you want to do, you can find it there. And we look forward to seeing you guys out there.
Great. And I will make sure that I put all of that information in the show notes as well.
Okay, that'd be great.
Blayne, thank you so much for this interview. Very enlightening. I found out so much today about Team Red, White, and Blue.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been awesome to be on.
I love what Blayne and Team Red, White, and Blue are doing. And in fact, prior to recording this outro, I went to Team RWB.org and I became a member myself. I joined the Annapolis, Maryland chapter, and I'm looking forward to participating in some events in the future. One point that I'd like to reiterate from the interview is that no matter how busy you are, you could still sign up and be part of this organization. Look at me. I have a full-time job. I'm a senior producer for the Veteran Artist Program. I spend many hours working on this podcast every week. I spend time trying to mold my daughter into a young lady, but I always find time for my health and to participate in activities with friends, old and new. And Team Red, White, and Blue is a great organization for veterans and non-veterans alike to get out there and get your sweat on. And get your sweat on with some like-minded individuals. I will have all of the information about Blayne and Team Red, White, and Blue in the show notes, and they can be found at veteranpodcast.com/010. That's right. We're in the double digits already. Time is flying. And speaking of which, if you don't know this already, Apple only gives you 8 weeks where you're able to be part of iTunes New and Noteworthy. And that means we only have about 1 week left. We have taken full advantage of it, that's for sure. Since day 2, we've been in the number 1 position under the governments and organizations category about 95% of the time. I'll go and I'll check it every once in a while, and we'll slip to number 2 or 3 for about half a day, and then we jump right back up. We also got as close as number 2 in the health category, but there seems to be a lot more competition there because we jump from 2 or 3 all the way to like 8 or 9, so we're all over the place. But once again, I'd like to thank you for all the ratings and reviews and sharing the links to the podcast. You guys are awesome. One last thing I'd like to point out is if you go to the show notes, I have turned on the comments. So if anybody has comments about this episode, please, I invite you to go and add your comments. It might benefit somebody that comes to the show notes after you. That's all I have for episode 10. I will see you in episode 11.